everyone, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak here. And quite a few people who attended the cybersecurity discussion yesterday know me as the Dubai guy. I was actually helping the e-citizen questions. I was actually mostly answering the e-citizen questions than the questions which are actually put forth to me. So I'm sure you all know me about. So, and today's session, I'm going to talk about how effective is it to get your IT digitalized, your business digitalized, and how important it is to brace those technology trends that are prevalent in the world. And the session is going to be really short. I'm going to talk about the technologies. First, I'm going to talk about those technologies that are prevalent in Kenya and what are the challenges in implementing those. Followed by which, I'm going to talk about why is it important to brace those technology trends. And the main part of my presentation is where I'm going to give you a 5-point strategy to effectively brace those technology trends and how ManageEngine is going to help you with those technology trends. And I'm going to end my presentation with a couple of case studies which will assert the fact that ManageEngine is definitely helping organizations brace those technology trends. And I think we are up right now. So this is the session that we're going to talk about. So let me first start with the, I don't know if the presentation is going to be loaded here. I'm sorry for the technical glitch here, but let me just continue. As we all know, I'm sure everybody is aware of this. You don't have to, or rather, I don't have to tell something new to you on this. We know how important or how efficient it is to move to the cloud. The previous panel discussion gave you a quick, or rather gave you a wider, I would say, a wider response, or probably a wider idea why you should move to the cloud. Okay, well, in a report given by AWS, it looks like as much as 26% of the organizations have moved to the cloud in Kenya. So we still have like around 74% to move to the cloud. And talking about the second one is automation, where the challenges are cost effectiveness, and then the scalability, compatibility with business processes, and so on, implementation costs, and integration with existing systems. So these are the challenges which comes into play when we talk about automation. AI, we know it's a revolution. The world is going to change forever in the next 5 years when AI takes up all walks of life and all walks of business. So what are the challenges here adopting AI? Lack of data, and there's a skills gap. So not everyone is actually conversant with the AI models or how do they work and so on. We also do not have any regulatory measures to trust those AI models. So there's something called as the AI TRISM. AI TRISM stands for AI Trust, Risk, and Security Management. So even before any compliance guidelines are implemented, we definitely have to know how efficiently do we have to, or how effectively do we have to trust these AI models. Security guidelines in place so that you know when an attack is happening, you know how to respond to it. So it doesn't mean that every organization is 100% security foolproof. No, it absolutely cannot be. In a report that ManageEngine that we studied a couple of years ago, we found out that every organization is being hit every 40 seconds. every website. So you know how important it is to keep your data safe. When talking about cybersecurity, you also have to focus on data privacy. So we already know quite a few guidelines are in place. For example, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. We know how important it is to keep your data safe, your personal data safe. And there's one more trend which is actually coming up, which I have seen in quite a few developed countries, is the cyber insurance. So you probably have to speak about, when you talk about cybersecurity, you also have to focus on cyber insurance and red teaming as well. Lastly, talking about sustainable technology, we definitely have to know what is a carbon footprint. So this is something which we have to know how much of the resources are being preserved, or how much of the resources are being served, or it's being efficiently used today, and how much of it is going to be available for the future generations. So that is exactly where sustainable technology is going to be focused on. The next one is, why do you have to brace these technology trends? First and foremost, in no particular order that has been listed on the screen here, you probably have to stay competitive. You definitely have to stay competitive from your competitors or from your peers and so on. And you should understand the ever-changing consumer behavior. This is something which we spoke about yesterday as well during my session, during my discussion. The consumer behavior keeps changing. As the generations go, the complete user demand, the consumer behavior, everything keeps changing. And today, we cannot live without our mobile phones. So everything has to be there on hand. So that is exactly how things have changed for us. Third one, you have to enhance your quality of service. We spoke about this yesterday as well. Today, if I have to apply for a visa from eCitizen Kenya, it just takes a couple of hours. Whereas 5 years ago, I still remember it usually used to take 5 days. So that's the quality of service that has been improved. And I always find it easy to come to Kenya rather than going to any other African countries, because everything is online here. Fourth one, protect your data and your business. Improve the total experience of your citizens and customers. It's important to improve the total experience. Total experience is a combination of user experience, employee experience, customer experience, and multi-experience all put together. And lastly, but not the least though, make informed decisions using decision intelligence. So once you have the data in hand, you have to be careful to take informed decisions, and you have to know how is it going to help you improve the quality of service with those decisions that you make. So now, talking about the main point of my presentation, the 5-point strategy for a digital-first service. So I'm sure everybody understands, or everybody accepts the fact that we are no longer in the digital transformation 1.0 or 2.0. We have moved from that. The world has moved from that. The world is moving towards digital-first experience. So here is my 5-point strategy. I'm going to discuss about these. The first one is to protect your critical infrastructure. So when you talk about your critical infrastructure, you probably have to deploy the zero trust model. Do not trust anything which comes into your organization. Verify everything. I usually say this to my audience. Do not trust your CEO's laptop as well. Even if it is even a pen drive, you definitely have to verify it. So that is exactly where zero trust stands. And you have to safeguard your critical resources through the NIST framework, National Institute of Standards and Technology, using the IPDRR. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and resolve. So this is something which you have to implement to understand how your critical resources are being utilized, or how is it being attacked as well. Full stack visibility. This is the first and foremost thing that you have to look into when you have to protect your critical infrastructure. You have to have full visibility and observability as well on how your assets are and where your assets are. It could be your software assets, components, hardware assets, and so on, all put together. Most importantly, when we talk about critical infrastructure, we have to know what is the access methodology. Who gets access to these critical resources? Is your privileged access management process driven? So this is something which you have to definitely understand. Not every technician will need access to these critical resources 24/7, 365. Why would he need access when he is sleeping or when he is traveling? So understand that he needs access only for a specific period of time within a day. How are you going to regulate this is something which is more important when we talk about protecting your critical resources. Talking about user experience, everything has to be digitalized here. So you probably have to have a self-service portal or a mobile app. It could be an Android app or a iOS app, so that everybody can start using it. How are you going to automate your incidents? Are you manually sitting and assigning tickets? Are you manually assigning the SLA? Are you manually identifying what are the assets which are associated with the user? Or are you manually patching your workstations? How are you going to do this? So this is something where you have to implement the automation concepts. Ensure optimal performance of your critical resources by monitoring them 24/7, 365. So while the access doesn't need 24/7, 365, whereas monitoring your resources actually needs 24/7, 365 vigilance. You also have to forecast the expansion of your IT infrastructure. Today, probably the e-citizen is actually serving 5.5 million people. But what if in 10 years you are going to reach 100 million? So you probably have to forecast for IT expansion as well. And what happens when there are some seasonal spikes in seasonal traffic spikes in government websites? You have to analyze what happens, or what is that which actually helps, or what is that which is actually responsible for a traffic spike in your government website. Because even before a citizen knows that that the government website is down, the IT which manages the government infrastructure has to know the website is going to go down. So which means that you have to have a total experience on how your resources are working. You have to have a real user monitoring to understand what happens within your network. And also resolve identity crisis. When we talk about identity, who accesses what, when, how, why. So talking about identity management, it is all about giving the right access to the right people for the right reasons at the right time. So you periodically have to manage what access has been provided to your users. The third one, safeguarding your data and resources. You have to secure your websites from ransomware attacks, phishing attacks, and so on. You know how important it is to protect your data and your websites from these attacks. Identify any external threats, including malwares. Identify or locate sensitive information. Every data that is going to be on e-citizen or every data that is going to be on your government website is going to be sensitive. So who gets access to these resources is actually important. Monitor unauthorized access to data files. You probably have to periodically check who gets access to these data files. Assuming that you're giving an access to a user or to a technician to access a data file, after 3 months, you definitely have to look back, is the permission still required? It is not like you give him a permission and then just leave it as it is. No, that's how it not works. It doesn't work that way. It has to be periodically monitoring the access permissions as well. This is what we call it as access certification, if you know about it. Protect data integrity. So the data, you should also talk about data interoperability here, where data has to be used across multiple portals, multiple services. So how are you going to integrate the data across multiple services? And remediate any vulnerabilities identified in the resources. It can be as small as disabling the antivirus. Even that's a vulnerability. So you have to definitely identify all the vulnerabilities starting from the firewall, starting from access permissions until the software permissions. Fourth one, how do you modernize your legacy systems? I'm sure every government is actually now thinking about replacing their legacy systems. We still have to deal with them, but what is the best way? Move to the cloud. I don't have to give you the importance of moving to the cloud. Or look at a better way of replacing these legacy systems. Look at low-code, no-code application development software. So this is going to help you build those functionalities which were there on the legacy systems. The most important limitation of these legacy systems are the security, scalability, and compatibility. You should understand the overall architecture of the legacy systems and build relationship diagrams so you know what happens when a critical resource goes down or when a service goes down. What are those, or what happens when a system goes down? What are those services which are getting affected? Analyze logs from these legacy systems to identify potential threats. I'm not sure how many of you have been started looking at those logs from these legacy systems. It's important to know what is happening within these legacy systems. The logs contain every other information. So you definitely have to analyze the logs for potential threats. Finally, to increase efficiency, automate processes, introduce workflows, introduce orchestration as well. Automation across multiple departments, multiple tasks. This is something which you have to focus on. Protect your employees' endpoints. Endpoints are the first target of any attacks. So you definitely have to protect them from patching. You have to keep them with the latest patches for all softwares, Microsoft, Windows operating systems, Linux operating systems, every other operating system patches have to be deployed. And you also have to protect them from browser attacks as well. Say, for example, if there are some extensions and plugins, or if there is a external device which is getting connected, all these fall under protecting your employees' endpoints. Allow users to access applications with added layer of security. Introduce OTP, multi-factor authentication, question and answers, and so on. Simplify service deliveries through self-service portals, automation, and knowledge repository. Enhance the total experience of your citizens, enhance the total experience of your users and your customers too. So with that being said, if you're looking for a trusted solution vendor which can provide all these 5-point strategy to brace those technology trends, you can trust ManageEngine. ManageEngine has solutions across all those portfolios that I have listed here. Identity access management, unified endpoint management, unified service management, where we talk about incident management, problem change, release management, projects, asset management, CMDB, and so on. IT operations for monitoring your data center infrastructure, security information and event management for identifying security threats, and also introducing quite a few latest technologies like SOAR, security orchestration and automated response, UEBA, user entity behavior analytics, and then also CASB, Cloud Access Secure Broker. If you are looking to implement any of these, then ManageEngine is right in front of you. Privileged access management. Who gets access to those critical resources? How are you going to time the access of those critical resources? Business and IT analytics. What happens to the data that has been collected from various sources? How do you make informed decisions? So we have software for that one as well. And finally, to help you move your legacy systems without much investment cost, we have the low-code, no-code application development software. So I'm going to end my presentation with a couple of case studies. So the first one is Oil India, where the challenge was it had a multi-site. We call it as like you have sites at multiple locations within India, and then they had issues with software licensing and compliance. We had to manage they had to manage around 3,500 plus endpoints. Endpoints here includes laptops and mobile devices too. And they had an hybrid work culture. And unfortunately, the IT was sitting at a single location. So the solution from ManageEngine was Endpoint Central, with which they were able to effectively manage their hardware and software inventory. And then they were able to remotely control those workstations sitting in one location. Automated patch updates. So they do not have to manually install the patch. So patch updates were pushed from a central location. And finally, we also had this guidelines for data loss protection in this organization. The second case study is about Fujairah government, where they had to manage their identities. I will no longer call them as users. They had to manage their identities. They had to deal with routine Active Directory tasks, PowerShell scripts, native tools. It was manual and time-consuming. There was no track record of who changed within the Active Directory configuration, and all these activities were error-prone. So the solution from ManageEngine was AD Manager Plus, where we helped them to automate Active Directory tasks. Everything was template-driven. So which means that all that you have to feed to the system is to choose which template, and it will automatically add those users. It also helps you to delegate tasks to your technicians. Who gets access to what? Who gets access to change the Exchange attributes? Who gets access to change the Active Directory attributes? Who gets access to change the portal attributes, and so on? Activity tracking was inbuilt feature, and we also have this access certification where we allow managers to periodically check the access permissions given to users or to technicians. So with that being said, I'm going to end my presentation here. Thank you for patiently hearing my presentation. If you need more information about the products that I spoke about, we have a booth here. Come and meet us. We'll definitely help you out. Thank you, guys.